Well, welcome everyone. This is Sonja Jones of GIP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of money. And for this series, we are bringing in our actual clients whom we love and we work with, just to give you some experience and just a little glimpse of the magic that GIP brings to entrepreneurs to help them get their financials in position. And you may have seen this young lady on some of our social media marketing. And this is Miss Erin Welborn of Greenbox Solutions. Erin is one of our day ones when we first started our business, and we connected. And she has, I'm not going to give you guys all the goodies, but we're going to start just kind of sharing how we've built our relationship and just the blessings that have come on top of that through our relationship. So, Erin, welcome, love.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So, tell us a little bit about Greenbox Solutions.
Okay, Greenbox Solutions is a nonprofit organization in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's 7 years old. Our focus is seniors and caregivers and their families. Our motto is everything you need is in the green box. Moral of that comes from my mom. When I was little, she would say if anything ever happened to her, everything is in the green box. So that's our focus. We want to make sure families, seniors particularly, but families are prepared. So if there's ever an emergency situation, that all of their important documents, everything that they need is organized and in one location so their families can handle their affairs, that they know what medication they're taking, who the doctor is, the whole nine, so that, once the medical situation or the family emergency is over, that they are not in debt, losing the house, having to file bankruptcy, that kind of stuff. So that's Greenbox in the short version, kind of talking about it, the 30-second spiel or whatever.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we definitely, when I first heard about Greenbox Solutions, just the story of it was just a blessing. I've never heard of anything like that before, and how just to even see it from social media standpoint, even talking with you about it, just seeing how it has transformed and has grown, and how you guys, serve the community. It's just been a real, real blessing. So let's talk about how we connected. So if memory serves me correctly, we started. I want to say we met through social media, but we started with a QuickBooks setup because you wanted to make sure that you got the organization's financials nice and tidy, right? So you want to talk a little bit about that?
That is correct. And believe it or not, I checked. So I reached out to you July 2020. So there was a post in one of the nonprofit Facebook groups. I mean, when you're a nonprofit person and you kind of grassroots, you join a lot of these groups so you can learn. And we had gotten the QuickBooks from TechSoup, which is, a group that services nonprofits with discounts for various services. And we got the desktop version, and I was completely confused. So I saw a post that you did, and I remember sending you an email, and I was like, "Hey, I saw your post in this group, and we have the desktop version. Can you help us set it up?" And you said, "Yes, sign up for my consult." And so that's how we connected.
Absolutely. If you notice, I just want to make sure that if you are a nonprofit, make sure that you get your software products through TechSoup. It's TechSoup.org. And especially when it comes to QuickBooks, whether you, particularly if you do it online, because if you have the desktop version, not that I think you're just gonna pay that fee one time. But if you're doing it online, of course, there's a monthly service fee. But if you get that subscription through TechSoup, what you would normally pay in a month, you will pay that subscription in 1 year. So if
Mm.
you have a nonprofit, especially if you're a 501c3, because they will check for that, make sure you go through TechSoup.org. So we want to make sure that we put that information in the description below as well. So, right. So Erin and I connected. We wanted to partner and talk about QuickBooks. So we did a QuickBooks setup, right? And
Right.
the the QuickBooks setup is normally like a tutorial process. So it comes normally in 2 1-hour sessions. So the first hour, we walk through connecting, your QuickBooks, making sure your company profile is set up the right way. And then we also make sure that your banking account and all your accounts that are affiliated with your organization or your business are connected to QuickBooks, so you can make sure that those transactions are being synced daily to your software, so you can categorize your income as well as your expenses. And then for the second hour, we review any questions that you have about your transactions. Then we go through the reconciliation process, in which you'll need your bank statement or your credit card statement for that, just to match your transactions to would match the transactions that are on the statement with your QuickBooks, what that are loaded in your QuickBooks, and then also we go through the reporting. So once all your transactions are categorized and reconciled, then you'll be able to see that data through your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your cash flow statement. Now, if you are a nonprofit, the profit and loss and the balance sheet, those titles may look a little different in your QuickBooks. So the P&L is going to say the statement of activity, and your balance sheet is going to say the statement of financial position. So, Erin, let's talk about your experience once you got your QuickBooks set up. And I remember we had a talk because you were preparing for your board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of walk us through once we got your QuickBooks set up and you got ready for that board meeting after that. Do you remember what that experience was like?
Well, QuickBooks is great because, again, when you are a grassroots nonprofit, you have to kind of learn things as you go. And what is so frustrating is trying to figure out the financial statements and wanting to show your board the financial statements, be able to show something other than this is what the bank statement is saying. Um, when you set everything up in QuickBooks, it basically categorized everything. So I was able to just go in and tell it to run a report, which is something that I would not have been able to do before. And then I could show the board, okay, this is where our money is going. This is what it looked like versus what our budget was projected to be. And how far off are we, or how close are we? What items do we over project for? What items that we under project for? What items do we not include at all? So it just gave a better picture than what we had before.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other reports, especially for nonprofits, that is key, especially when you're talking to your board, is the budget versus actual report. So if you notice that Erin talked about having a budget, and most nonprofits, most successful nonprofits, I would say, should have a budget, just to make sure that from a planning standpoint, you guys already kind of have a picture of what you want your organization to look like from a fiscal standpoint, because we know things change. So the budget kind of help you stay on track. It's kind of like setting your goals fiscally for the year, but as things change, it's good to have that comparison of what you plan to spend or what you plan to receive in revenue versus what you actually receive or what you actually spend. And that way you are able to talk with your board about the variances. Sometimes you can use that data to justify this is why we may need income here, or why we may need donations to meet this particular need. And having those numbers right, because the numbers don't lie, they're going to give you the
Mm-hmm.
data that you need to help move your organization forward. Because I know that we also talked about that when you're running those reports, you also have to be knowledgeable of what those numbers mean
Mm-hmm.
and how you need to interpret those numbers to your board. Because guess what? All your board members are financially savvy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And especially if you're
Right.
trying, get a point across, you want to make sure that you have those numbers basically telling your story, even for potential donors as well. So, Erin, so how has working with GIP impacted the fiscal, have impacted Greenbox Solutions from a fiscal standpoint?
Well, I feel more confident. Like I said, grassroots, we are basically volunteer run. So you're wearing a lot of hats, and that's one hat that I'm glad to give over, because I'm not financial, I'm not accounting. And what I don't want to do and what I don't want to happen is to put me or my board or anybody affiliated with the organization in a position to where they could do something that could be deemed illegal, or something that if we were audited would draw questions, that have people questioning our charity status or any of that. So it was just very important to me that we were keeping really good records and making sure that we had a professional who we could rely on if we had questions. But dealing with you guys, like, I really don't have questions. I make sure that I do my part, which is I keep my receipts, and I have, and I can explain what it was for and that it's a legitimate expense. And then you guys, take care of the reconciliation, make sure everything's done in QuickBooks, and I have no worries. So I don't, it's good to not have to worry about that at all. It's great.
Right. I love that. And I hope that you heard some of the nuggets that Erin was mentioning, particularly about compliance, right? And then also when you have your financials in position, your board is happy, your time is saved, you preserve your sanity from a nonprofit standpoint, and it also puts you in position for more funding, right? Because those eyes are constantly on your organization, and what a blessing it is just to be able to have a potential donor say, I'm interested to hear more about your organization. Can I see, your prior fiscal year's profit and loss? And you have that, and you can send it to them just like that, right? Because
Right.
that's already letting them know, like, wow, they are super organized. I can trust them with giving them funds to further their mission. That is a game changer. That's a big game changer. So I wanted to save this little nugget for last because Erin is such a giver, and she has just been such a blessing to GIP. So I want to tell the story about Diamond. And and so I won't tell my side of it. I want you to tell your side of it. So right after we had our QuickBooks set up, and if I'm not mistaken, Diamond's actually one of our staff accountants now, but she was originally working with Erin as her temporary bookkeeper. And Diamond was actually with Erin during the training. And so, if you are a nonprofit organization, or even if you're an entrepreneur and you have somebody on your team that you feel like can help you with this, of course, they can always come with you on the training if you decide to do the QuickBooks setup. So, I want to make sure that I said that in the video as well. So, Diamond and Erin were both training with me. And then once there was a point to where I guess Erin was transitioning, to a particular space, and Diamond was going to be transitioning out. Erin did something like spectacular for Diamond. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to let Erin take it from here.
Yes, Diamond had been working with us. She was reconciling our books, and we were using we used Google Drive for the receipts, and then she would do like an Excel kind of spreadsheet thing, and we have like this ongoing Excel spreadsheet that shows where she reconciled the transactions. So we would talk. Diamond and I would talk every month after she finished the reconciliation, just a regular check-in, how you doing. It really wasn't even about the finances. It was just about, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Is everything good? Did we miss anything? What's going on in your personal life? Do you just need the vent? What? And we do that both ways. It's not just me checking on her. She checks on me too. And one of the things we had discussed was she was wanting to kind of grow in her skill set about learning how to do QuickBooks and kind of getting with somebody who could kind of train her and mentor her and help her to grow so that she could expand her skills. And I had already trained with you, and I was like, oh, well, I can get Sonya to train you, and then that way you can get what you need, and then you can still help us, but you can also have something that you can use, and basically I can sew into you. So I don't mind. was in a place and in a space that I was able to sow into her and um, get her connected with you, and help her to do something that she wanted to do, but also help you to do something you want to do too. So it just worked out, and I felt blessed to be able to do that. And you guys have been a blessing to my organization in return. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and when I tell you, just to know that someone trusts you and your ability enough to actually soul to that level, a whole person. And when I tell you, Diamond has grown by leaps and bounds. And when I tell you, like, Diamond is probably like right here to me, and she's kind of like my slick life coach. We were at Black Equity Con in with 2022, and Diamond was the one that actually encouraged me to go ahead and do full time entrepreneurship. And so, and I'm confident, I'm convinced that if it wasn't for the connection with you, Aaron, that
Mhm.
we would not be here. I would not be in the position where I am. So I want to thank you
Oh,
for
you're
that.
welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. You're welcome. You're
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Like I said, I appreciate both of y'all. I know if anything comes up and I don't understand it, I can shoot you guys an email and you respond like within 24 hours. And I don't feel like I'm less than. Sometimes when you aren't like a big name, some businesses don't take you as seriously, and I never get that from you. I always feel like my business and my questions and who I am matters. So I appreciate that.
absolutely, absolutely. That's what we're here to do. And like I said, we are a teaching ministry here at GIP Financial, and especially regardless of if you are a for profit or a nonprofit, regardless of where your journey is, we have tools and resources in place to help the startup up to the established. And part of what my expertise is in is actually in nonprofit finance. So that is my jam. I can do nonprofit finance all day long. So as we wrap up, Erin, I want to make sure that I ask one last question, especially for the nonprofits that are out there. What's one nugget or what advice would you give specifically nonprofit leaders who are skeptical about, hiring a bookkeeper? Maybe they had a finance person, maybe they had a CFO, and they just, maybe they transitioned for one reason or another, and now they're just kind of skeptical about letting somebody back in to handle their finances. What advice would you give them?
Well, I think both of our businesses can tie to that. Just like with Greenbox, you need to always have a plan. You need to always have a plan. And when it comes to the money, you cannot play with the money. So, you need to sit down and if even if you don't know, even if they talk to Sonya and her team, so y'all can give them some ideas on what can we do, what would be a good way to come up with a plan, because again, finances is the stuff that'll get people sent to jail. So you need to make sure that your treasurer's on board, and then you got some other backup people. It needs to be more than one person on the bank account. It needs to be more than one person that has the QuickBooks access. It needs to be financial statements need to be shared. There needs to be a financial policy procedure set in place that you guys can stick to, because again, if you're part of a nonprofit and you're sitting on a board, you know there's some responsibility there. If you don't have proper certification, proper licensing in place, your board can be financially liable if somebody sues you. So they need to know what's going on. So definitely, even if you lose one person, you need to be able to have a plan where, like, okay, there's a transition period. We need to notify the banks. We need to make sure everybody got proper access to um to the reports, to our software, everything, because again, you do not want to be on this board trusting other folks, and then something happens and everybody's looking like I don't know anything, because the government, courts, the people you serve are not going to believe you. They're not going to believe that you literally were sitting on this board and you didn't know anything. So if you know that you don't have that skill set, definitely reach out, get Sonja, get her team to help you to get started. And what they don't know, they can point you in the right direction. But don't let fear hold you back and put you in a position that you don't really want to be in if something bad happens.
I agree 150%. Nonprofits, look, especially I'm talking to all of my executive directors and CEOs. You may not be, I can hear you now. I hear you, Erin, but I'm not the money person. That's why you have a board of directors, right? And make
Right.
sure, especially if you are trying to vet someone, especially ask if they specialize in nonprofit accounting, right? And if you're bringing that person in for an interview, make sure you have at least a couple of members of your board there, because that person should be the main person that's also informing the board members, as well as you as the CEO and the executive director, about what's going on with those finances. If you can't interpret those numbers, that person should be able to do that for you as your partner. And as well as talking about internal controls, your standard operating procedures for the financial portion of your nonprofit. Because just like what Erin said, and I'll take it as far as from a compliance standpoint, your state comptroller or whoever you have to, report your finances to, they are not going to want to hear why I didn't know. They are not. You still have to pay that fine or have to go through said consequences, God forbid, if it even gets that far. So you want to make sure that you have an expert and utilize the resources that you have at your disposal, right?
Right.
So, right. So thank you, Erin, so much for coming on and just sharing our story, with the GIP family. And y'all, make sure that you download the Business Finance Blueprint. That's our free ebook, nonprofits. You can download the Business Finance Blueprint as well, because it's going to give you some information about your entity. Yes, I know that you're a nonprofit, but you ought to be aware of who you have to report to from a state standpoint. And then we're also talking about the cash flow, your money in and your money out. A lot of reasons why a lot of our organizations and our businesses can't get their cash flow together, because they're not thinking about the systems and thinking about how you're actually going to get money into your establishment. That's a question a lot of people don't even think about. They just think about, I just want the money in my hand. But how you going to get the money to your hand? That's going to be, an
Right.
important question. And then talking about the money out, because you got to have good vendor relationships to make sure, because the money's going to, sometimes it's up high, sometimes it's down low, right? And if you owe vendors, then you got to be like, what's up, buddy? See what happened was. Right? And you want to make sure that they offer you a little bit of leniency and patience. But we also talk about the monthly financial close, as well as those financial reports that we talked about as well, the balance sheet, cash flow, and the profit and loss. So download that free ebook. The link will be in the description below, because we want to make sure that you are able to get your numbers in position. So thank y'all again for hanging out with Erin and I. Erin, again, thank you so much. I love you. You my thing.
Love you too. Love you too. Thank you for
Y'all.
me.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. I love you too. All right, y'all. Take care. We'll see you on the next video. Peace.